Boo!
All right, we'll cue up the music here and we'll get ready to move on.
Am I coming through?
Yeah, I'll mute up and it's your turn, man.
A little bit of a heads up. This was written by someone from Mexico, and so English isn't their first language, and so there's a few words that I might stumble on as they typed it up. So this is a story about a creature called a Nagual, and this is a Mexican shapeshifter. Many of you paranormal enthusiasts may have already heard by now the word Nagual. Here in Mexico, I would guess, and also in other countries in Latin America, this is a person that can shapeshift into animals. This was a cold night. I remember because it was really odd around this area of my country. My parents' house is in a small town when I lived there back in the day. It was one of the last houses on the outside of town. There weren't very many neighbors, but there was a lot of trees and nature all around us. The house had a long backyard where we used to have sheep. At one side, there was also a small water stream and trees on the other side. Suddenly, that night, the sheep started to bleat very loudly, something you could almost call a scream. My father went to check out the window on the backside of the house. I still recall his face when he came back quickly. He told my mom, "Go ask your father and brother to come here immediately." There were 4 brothers, my grandfather, and my father. When everyone was there, a few minutes later, my father started to tell what he saw. In the barnyard, we had 10 sheep. At the moment my father looked out there, all of them were heaped just in one corner. At the center, there was some sort of big animal. My father described it as the size of a bear, which makes no sense for our area. He said it was big and hairy and seemed to be eating one of the sheep out there. The sheep were all screaming still. Then my grandfather told my mom to keep inside the house and keep me in there, also with her. If you go outside now, you may catch a bad air. So he made some kind of prayer. He was holding onto a machete. I remember he said the names of my uncles and my father in his prayer. They went outside. My grandfather started to yell at the darkness, telling things like, "Go away, you have nothing to do here, leave this house." My father told me that he saw how this thing was in a pose, like it was hunched over eating the sheep that was laying on the ground, still screaming the entire time. When my grandfather yelled at it, this thing seemed to stop and raise its head up towards my family. Being was only staring at them, not a single noise, also no red or shining eyes like an animal. Only the shadow looked like it was looking at them. So my father decided to do something that, at last, he took a big rock and picked it up from the ground and threw it at the thing. It may have not been the smartest thing to do in the situation, but apparently this thing was not strong enough to take on 6 men armed with machetes, or at least it didn't want to at the time. When the rock hit it, the thing turned back and ran away into the forest, running on 4 legs. This is when they came closer to the sheep. They saw how the sheep was on the ground. It was still alive. It had been completely skinned. It was horrifying, to say the least. My grandfather sacrificed it to stop the suffering. After that night, a family friend who is known for being quite strong despite being an old man, and there was tales that he used to practice sorcery to heal people, told us that someone new in town was apparently a Nagual. He told us he spoke to that man and asked him to leave town. We never happened to see that ever again, so it seems that it took his advice to leave town. And we have a picture of what was supposedly a Nagual caught on a trail cam some 10 years back. It's not this from this story, but they apparently all look very similar to this, which just looks like a freaking nightmare.
Oh my gosh.
Like the hands, those are not paws, those are definitely hands.
Oh my gosh.
The face, very human-esque. So yes, apparently this is a witch person that will transform into this creature and terrorize communities. Apparently, people who practice certain other magics have been able to run them off, shamans and stuff like that. They're not as powerful as, say, a skinwalker, which is like apparently supposed to be almost indestructible and is a curse upon humans. This is a person that does this, and Not much I can say here, except for this is one of the most terrifying pictures I've ever seen. And like I said, it dates back originally 10 years or so ago. So some people were saying, oh, this AI generated because someone shared it not too long ago. And he's like, no, it's way too old to be AI generated.
That's good to know.
Yeah. Something about it is just off. So it doesn't look like a Photoshop or anything. It just looks like a creature that was caught on the camera. And you got like
So,
the bugs flying in the background and everything. It looks very authentic.
yeah, you can see the long grass and all that.
Yeah.
This is a question that I also have here. Sorcerer was able to tell them to leave. We need to find out more.
Yeah, apparently he practiced healing magic, and that was
That's
his
odd.
thing. Yeah, he was
It's
a
cool, I guess, but
yeah, he's kind of like a medicine man.
that's, yeah, like a Dr. Quinn medicine man.
Yeah,
I think the creepy part to me is they describe this sheep screaming.
yeah. Said it was more than a bleat and almost a scream, and the fact that they found it skinned but alive, it was skinning it.
That is crazy. It was still alive, and they had to take care of it.
Yeah,
This picture's terrifying. I think the face and the hands are definitely what do it for me, but the legs are definitely animal.
yeah,
Look at the way at the joints, and then even the lack of girth down there at the leg area, the feet area, right above the feet area, should I say? You can see the bones.
still like a very stocky upper body though. It's like
It is. It almost looks like freaking fingernails for claws, you know?
it does. Like they're not like long or anything. They're kind of like trimmed almost.
Yeah, that's creepy. It's also the shadow behind it of it.
Yeah, the shadow behind it there kind of makes it look more real.
I tell you what, I've seen a lot of trail cam stuff. This looks like a vintage trail cam picture.
Yeah, it does.
Shot here. Never the greatest quality. Like I said, this is even older.
Yeah, and 10 years ago, and it's from South America, Latin America, or anyway, and so it might not be the most high quality cameras there. Yeah, it looks real, and that's what makes it more terrifying.
Also have the down there in the bottom of the picture if you want to go learn more about it. Look like that'd be a good spot.
He was more just wanting to know what the hell it was because he had seen this picture and re-uploaded it. He was like, "What is this? I just saw this somewhere else," and somebody was like, we think it's a Nagual. I encountered a few other Nagual stories when I was looking for one that I really liked. This one was I would say the most easy to read because, like I said, a lot of them are from Spanish native speakers, and so like a lot of them are a little bit more chopped up and harder to read.
Yeah.
So this one was the easiest one, and I was like, well, I want to go with
terrifying.
this one.
Dude, I did.
They're all pretty terrifying. All the stories are really weird. There was one where the person described it as having human breasts, and it was like staring at her from the driveway while she was on the porch, and it was like just like stalking her. And then her parents came out and chased it off with screaming at it and stuff like that. But
Out of her. Get on out of her. Get on out of her.
yeah, very terrifying. Very weird.
Viv Game says, man, if you squint your eyes and head, looks clear and somehow more terrifying. Let me try here. It kind of does.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's a nightmare.
That was a cool story. This is terrifying. I think that I'm curious. I'm going to ask you, like I always do, what would you do if you come across this and you're in this scenario?
Well,
if you had a stick, let's go back to last story here. If you had a stick, would you approach this thing? You might need more to stick for this one.
I know I need some sort of blade or gun if it looks like that. But his eyes weren't reflective like an animal's eyes. It was dark. It was just like a shadow of his head looked out.
Yeah.
I don't know, the idea of this thing crouched over and skinning this sheep alive.
That's what I was wondering. Is its foot down, its other foot down in that picture, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
You're looking at it here, and I'm just like, is the other foot down,
Yeah, I don't know. It's this thing
or is it really just hunched over completely,
I don't know. It might be. At first, I thought it was jumping through the camera to the side. But it might just be like maybe the camera's a little bit tilted or something like that, and it's kind of like just walking towards it.
You put a trail cam up and you find that, what do?
Well, I would figure out what kind of shaman or sorcerer we need to contact. some sort of healing sorcerer.
Apparently, they're very common. Apparently, they're very common there.
And then we will go from there. Also get some machetes. Yeah, have a machete party.
Maybe everybody should have a trail cam out just to outside the
like
just to know what you're up against.
They're like $30 on Amazon. Get a couple of them out there.
Yeah, just to know what you're up against. You never know. Awesome story.
Yeah, I liked it.
Jeff Townsend Media. CG, good night.
And the question is, do I stay here? Will you be back? Are you gonna come back? Will you be back? Are you coming back?